Chapter 23, Company. Bat found that he didn't have much of an appetite either. So after he'd pushed his eggs around his plate for a while, Mom drove him to school. It turned out that everyone there had heard about what had happened at the play, too. From the moment Bat got out of the car, questions followed him. Bat, did you really take your skunk kit to the play? Bat, is it true that the auditorium has to be shut down for a whole week? Bat, can you really train a skunk to spray on purpose? Everybody calm down, Mr. Grayson said from the front of the class. Bat wished he could disappear. He wished he didn't have skin for people to look at or ears for people to talk into. Mr. Grayson must have assigned something for the class to do because all around the room, kids were rifling through their desks and flipping open books. Bat, Mr. Grayson said, kneeling beside Bat's desk, what can I do to help you? Bat shook his head. He didn't have any words. He shook his head more, and then he shook it harder and harder, and he kept on shaking it. Bat, said Mr. Grayson, but Bat shook his head on and on, like the pendulum of a clock, back and forth, left to right, left, right, left, right. And Mr. Grayson stayed right there, kneeling next to Bat's desk, his hand on Bat's shoulder. Finally, Bat felt better. His throat felt normal again, and it didn't bother him so much that he had skin and ears. Mr. Grayson squeezed his shoulder one more time, then stood up. I think, he said to Bat, that Baby Cakes could use some cuddles. Are you the man for the job? There in her enclosure was Baby Cakes, ears flopping, nose twitching. Bat sat cross-legged and held out one of the apple slices Mr. Grayson had given him. He had watched Mr. Grayson take the apple out of his own lunch sack, where he kept his orange satchel next to the big desk, which he kept in his orange satchel next to the big desk at the front of the room, and cut it open with a pocket knife. Baby Cakes hopped over to Bat and sniffed the apple slice before accepting it. Once she was happily chewing, Bat lifted her up and tucked her into the space between his crossed legs. Behind him, class went on. They were talking about a book they'd been reading about a girl with magical powers that allowed her to pause time and fix past mistakes, which at this moment sounded wonderful to Bat, even though he had read the book too and knew that every time the girl fixed one mistake, 3 more popped up in its place. Bat wondered if new, different mistakes would be better than the mistakes he had made, taking Thor to the play, ruining Janie's big night, and not knowing how to be a better friend to Israel. Maybe not being his friend anymore at all. Do you want some company? Bat looked up. It was Israel. I have company, Bat said, petting Baby Cakes. Israel sighed. I know, he said. I meant human company. Oh, said Bat. Yes, actually, I would like your company. This made Israel smile. He climbed into the enclosure and sat next to Bat. He leaned over and scratched Baby Cakes between the ears, just the way she liked. They sat quietly together for a while. Then Bat said, all at once, Are you still mad at me? A little, said Israel. Not really. If you're still mad at me, Bat asked, even a little, then why are you being my company? Because, said Israel, you're my best friend, right? Bat's eyes began to sting like little needle pricks. Yes, he said, but he looked down at Baby Cakes' fluffy Angora fur and her sideways ears, not up at Israel. Best friends need to stick together, Israel said. He reached over and pet Baby Cakes, his fingers disappearing into her soft white fur. Then he said, Bat, I have an idea for how you can apologize to Janie. And that is the end of chapter 23.